The
Yeah.
stimulus check. Let's talk about how this, what aspects of social justice are actually within the stimulus check, stimulus bill. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing, right? Because everybody just points to the stimulus check, which is amazing, obviously, just to help people. We mentioned the eviction moratoriums and the money that's going to be spent just paying off those bills. But there's some
Right.
interesting things that I didn't know until a couple of days ago. And I thought people would find interesting. So one of the things that we saw from the bill, and I think it's part of this overarching theme of how the coronavirus has exposed these deep inequities in American society, right? So some of these things that they're addressing might not off the cuff you would think of it as a COVID-19 related issue, but it is an opportunity to address some of these injustices that have happened in society for so long. And as you
Right.
guys can see on the screen, part of the bill is sort of a debt relief program for disenfranchised farmers. And a lot of those people are Black Americans who've had farms for decades and who've been struggling. And one of the unbelievable things that I came across, and I wish I knew about this sooner, is that sort of Black farmland ownership sort of peaked in the early 1900s. And so I think since 1910 to 1997, Black farmers have lost 90% of their land. It's incredible. And white farmers have only lost 2% of their land. And another number. So one of the reasons why is just systemic racism, access to loans. And there's a news organization called, I believe it's called The Counter, which found they did an investigation even during the Obama years, looking back at the Obama years, and they found that the USDA, even before Obama, but was denying loans to Black farmers. And a lot of Black farmers, I guess, they just didn't have titles to their land, so that made them ineligible. But they were being denied for all sorts of reasons. And there was almost something like 14,000 claims of civil rights issues made by Black farmers during the Obama years, and some of those were unsettled. And so what this would do under the stimulus bill is it would provide debt relief to these farmers. Some farmers are going as far as saying this is a version of reparations. Others are saying that it's hard to look at this as reparations because the amount of money that's being offered to these people is slim when you think about the greater context. So there was one person quoted in the Counter. I'm going to read the quote. It's amazing. So he said that they said that the best estimates that they've seen of the economic loss to Black farmers due to the USDA policies and the overall process of land appropriation by whites has been between $250 and $350 billion hit to Black farmers. So when you just see those numbers and you think about the 90% of the land lost over the last century, it's astounding. And this is, like I said, just one of those issues that the inequities that's being coming to the fore due to the coronavirus pandemic. So this is just something that the stimulus bill is trying to correct as best as it can.
Like you said, wouldn't have even known about this. Like you don't hear about this on, it's all about the stimulus, the money, the checks, some of the other things that have been happening, small business relief, obviously some really needed and really important things. But does this do enough? I guess is going to be the question, right?
Well, I think some are saying, because this is, I think the money appropriated is going to be $5 billion debt relief, and that's apparently significant. I mean, when you think about just the overall hit, the number that I just quoted, the nearly $350 billion loss, when you compare that to $5 billion, you're like, oh. But apparently, a lot of Black farmers are saying this will help a lot in terms of debt relief because a lot of the money that they owed were due to foreclosures that they had to, that they were hit with foreclosures because of the loans they were not able to get, and this will help pay some of that off. So hopefully, this will allow Black farmers to find some success where there's been so much loss and pain over the last century.
Got it. All right. Cool. Good information. Anything else hidden in this stimulus package we should know about from a social justice angle?
Yeah, so I think this is something that alludes to what Chris mentioned in his bite about racism as a public health crisis, and it has to do with the maternal mortality rates in this country, which are astronomically high as compared to other developed nations. I think the U.S. has the highest. of those countries. And the women hit the hardest again are African Americans, and the maternal mortality rate has been high for so long. I think that they found that even Black mothers with a college education die as much as 5 times higher than white women. And people bring up sort of like this economic. They try to tie it to economics because there's always this conventional wisdom that if you go to college and you make money, you're living well off, and you're not going to be potentially have some of the issues that maybe somebody who's living in poverty has. But it shows that despite economic class, Black women are still facing these burdens. So the stimulus bill also is trying to correct that by basically extending Medicaid to people who, after I think 60 days, if you're on Medicaid and you have a pregnancy, you lose that coverage, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the post-pregnancy period where a lot of women are dying. So by extending it, I think up to a year, they're obviously hoping that better healthcare coverage will reduce these mortality rates. And that's federal funding going to states. So the states, I think they might have to pay part of it, but federal funding is going to help pay a lot of the Medicare cost.
It's one of the most astounding statistics that I find. I mean, I talk a lot about in my other world, hip hop being used as a tool to enhance education, right? You're using it as a vehicle for enhancing engagement of young people and bringing up their grades, bringing up their engagement, their interest, all that. And it's often overlooked, it's often poo-pooed by people who don't have a great understanding of hip hop. And I do that and I contrast it with the fact that in education standards, the United States, comparatively worldwide, is somewhere like in the middle of the rank. And for the richest country and the greatest country and all those things we're supposed to be, I can't call us the greatest nation on earth like some of the politicians like to do, because we're not doing the greatest things. We don't have the greatest education system. We don't have we're not tops when it comes to educational output. The maternal mortality rate is one of the most heartbreaking statistics that I think we can find that show how we take an entire aspect of society and have thrown it away and do not care about it. There's no reason why that number should be that number, is what I'm saying.
No, when you think about, Oh, sorry, go, Chris.
No, I mean, it's just one of the most shocking, when I first heard this, I think it would be to anyone. It obviously does not get the attention it deserves. And, on that note, Manny, I mean, we're heralded as the wealthiest country in the entire planet, and I just looked it up. I think it's,
Chris froze.
Chris frozen by
by the shocking numbers.
Yes, by the shocking numbers in that thing. But like you say, right here,
somewhere in the middle, near closer to
by far tops.
Yeah. It's not even close. If you look at that, it's not. I think the next closest country is France, and they're like halfway,
about half. So it's really quite remarkable. So it's good to see that some of this stuff is being tackled by the stimulus package that I want to remind, for whatever side of things you might be on, Republicans didn't vote for it at all. Is that correct? Did I get that right? Not one Republican voted for this stimulus package.
One voted by accident, I think he said. He hit the wrong button.
They hit the wrong button. I think that was for the George Floyd.
Hit the wrong button.
Something else.
That's actually hilarious.
I don't know.
That's sadly hilarious.
I love that you mentioned that because, you have some of these Republicans who are picking and choosing aspects of the law and tweeting it out or sending out campaign emails saying, wow, this is going to be great for restaurants. This is going to be great for whoever. You guys did not even vote for it.
There was someone who was saying this is going to bring so much money to our Republican district or whatever. The case is you didn't vote, but you didn't vote for the bill. Yeah, it's going to help out the people.
I mean, I think you could see that coming. You could probably see that coming just by the way that they did not even forcefully, oppose this thing, right? You're going to have the generalized statements about debt that they never made during the Trump years when they were blowing up the debt with tax cuts to the rich, right? Right. So you had that, which you expected, but it's sort of brazen to pick and choose aspects of a law that you didn't even vote for.
Crazy. Yeah.
So-
All right. Well, listen, stimulus is helping Black farmers, maternal mortality rates. Anything else?
If you have it, Manny, I would like to play a clip from an interview we did about this crisis, how racism impacts the coronavirus death rates. We did not include it in the episode, but I'm glad that we still have it because the professor is talking about the concept of weathering, which she introduced a couple decades ago, which Chris also mentioned, and how that may impact Black mothers.
Yes, fascinating. Also, remember, everyone, we're a podcast. I know we're extremely handsome and you love seeing us on video, but we actually do some remarkable podcast work. We're primarily a podcast. This would be a clip, not from the podcast necessarily, but from the interview, and it shows the caliber of expert voice that we get, and also kind of our attention to these issues. This is a clip that was sort of the outtake, but you'll see the episode represented on the screen. Real quick clip, y'all.
I believe that weathering is a major contributor to the increase in maternal mortality that we've seen, especially among Black women. In the US, maternal mortality has been increasing over the same last 30 years at the same time that in all other Western nations, it's been going down. And as I said, it's increasing most significantly among Black women. And this is another example of the mistake of thinking about chronological age, because what weathering implies is you're less healthy at 25 than you were at 20, at 30 than you were at 25, at 35, et cetera. And so we have our kind of social norms have encouraged people, especially high achieving and professional and highly educated women, to postpone childbearing into their late 20s, 30s, and even 40s. But what people are missing there is the fact that African-American women will have had more years at that point, whether they're economically well off or working class or poor. Some of the salts that I've described that activate weathering happen to stigmatized and marginalized groups across the board, irrespective of class. And so they're having their babies on more weathered systems when they've postponed childbearing to their 30s.
That was who was that? Please let people know.
Professor Aline Geronimus. I think she's out of Michigan, if I have that right. I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, and just think about some of what she just said. I mean, the fact that just daily living would break down physiological processes because of racism. Yeah. Just the fear of walking across the street, being arrested for jaywalking or something like that, or just driving or any of these things.